Boom boom ba boom bam ba boom bam ba boom bam bam ba dum bum bum ba boom bam bam bum bam ba boom bam boom boom ba ba dum bam ba boom bam ba boom bam bum ba dum boom boom ba boom bam ba boom bam ba boom.
So we are 3 lines from the top. Kuf Ayin Gim.
Rabbi, can I ask a question? Before the comes into what we're calling his pashtus here, and we said there's etzem ha'ar, but is there another stage between etzem ha'ar and his pashtus that we kind of mentioned that's like subtle? Like the beginning of his pashtus, right before it?
Why do you say it? What's your question?
I remember we discussed something like that. I'm wondering what it was and if we need to know about it for now. So I think it's relevant.
Anything you need to know will be known.
Okay.
Yeah, so I said we have 3 lines from the top. The line begins Horotzin al Ho'elamis, which we discussed yesterday. What's the emphasis on Ho'elamis? The Horotzin al Ho'elamis, this is the Hispashtus Harebi Dugmas Bechinas Kriyas Hashem. In the Moshel, this represents. This is similar to the union from Bechina of Kriyas Hashem. And as we pointed out there, when we said the Moshel of Kriyas Hashem, that even though Kriyas Hashem is a totally external thing, you call His name for the purpose of reference, the purpose of calling His attention. But calling His name is also essentially calling Him. So even though it's only calling the name, but the name has an intrinsic relationship to Him. As we explained quite extensively, why does He have a name? Because He is such an entity that has a name, that deserves a name, and a name is befitting Him because of the reality of the person. Therefore, Kriyas Hashem is not just an external functional element. As we pointed out then, that for those people who call their dogs by name, even there surely sense a difference, hopefully, between calling their children by name and calling the dog by name. So we have now entered into the arena of Oiresom Shelifnei HaTzimtzum. That in Oiresom Shelifnei HaTzimtzum, we will also be able to identify madregis, and essentially 2 madregis, the Etzem Ha'oir and the Hispashtus. So yesterday, as an introduction to beginning to speak about Ein Sof Shel Lifnei HaTzimtzum, which we spoke about many times, but each time you need to a refreshing to know what you're talking about. There is the well-known point that is made in the Ayin that the Alter Rebbe, when he would mention Atzilus, he couldn't write the full word Atzilus. He was only able to write Aleph Tzadik Yud, and then he was so overwhelmed that he would stop Aleph Tzadik Yud. In other words, when we're talking about Ein Sof Shel Lifnei HaTzimtzum, at the minimum, we have to reflect what are we talking about. Otherwise, we just be saying words, holy words, but that's all it is. And we pointed out that there is a fundamental difference between the Ein Sof Shel Lifnei HaTzimtzum and Li'achar HaTzimtzum. Even though Li'achar HaTzimtzum it's also Ein Sof. It's Choseh V'Heir. But it's not the same thing. So we explained it yesterday. Just want to add another point that would clarify it even more. Ein Sof is an oil that is representative of the Etzem, as we learned. Because that is what the oil was there was the Rotzen in the Etzem to represent itself in oil. So therefore the oil represents the Etzem. What is the Etzem? Pardon me, sir. What is the Etzem? No, it's in the throat. I can't get it. I can't get it today. What is the Etzem? So this is something which we, again, have to reflect when we begin to speak about it. Etzem, as we pointed out, this is where presence precedes not presence.
Etzem is where presence precedes not.
It is not a presence that is an answer to some kind of a non-presence. It's a presence because of the truth of its presence. Amitis emotzi. So therefore, if this is a presence that is a present that is amitis emotzi, it is present because it's present. When you say there is the oir that is representative of this etzem, the oir also lacks any element of hamshach. Lacks. I mean, it's not a lack. It completely overwhelms the whole question of where it comes from. It doesn't come. If it is the oil is representative of the etzem, it is representative of the etzem. It is an etzem. Even though it came volitionally and it was created, as we said, and we learned yesh me'ayin. It has an element of yesh me'ayin. And yet, in this oir, we're identifying here two elements. The etzem oir, the fact that it has an etzem oir, there's absolutely no question, because it's representative of etzem. But the fact that it also has his pashtus oir, this is the great novelty over here. But the Indian that it has his pashtus oir, this is the principle of being in oir. Oir, by definition, has etzem oir and his pashtus oir. That's what oir is. Oir is the effect that the etzem has with anything that it comes in contact. That's what it is, pashtus. So, Oyer in general, this is the Shem, this is the Etzem Hashem. That's what as we said earlier, that Shem and Oyer hu inyan echad. Because why? What is the function of a name? Why is it a name? Aim defines the presence as this person can be known to others. That's the name. So even Etzem Hashem, as we explained, the reason that there is an Etzem Hashem is because the person, by definition, is a presence in the reality, not just in himself. That's why he has a name, Etzem Hashem. So the Oyer is the from the Shem, the name, which means this is the presence of Atzmus. The presence of Atzmus in presence of Atzmus is already a union of an Oyer, because Atzmus doesn't have a presence. And in that there is the union of Hispashtus. Hispashtus means that it can also be applied. It can also be applied. It can also be recognized as just as Oyer, rather than the Etzem. So, in the Oyer itself, and we said that there is the Rotzin, that it should be Oyer. Within the Oyer itself, there is the Yin, the Rotzin, Lahatzil V'Livrei. Ali is a Rotzin Alo Eilamus. Ali is a Rotzin Alo Eilamus. That takes place in the Oyer itself. Because that there is Oyer, which means that there is Yin, that a presence, there is Ali as a Rotzin, that this presence should be in Oilam level, in a world level. This is the Hispashtus.
The Elias Arasin creates the Hispashtus on earth?
Elias Arasin is synonymous with Hispashtus Oyer. At that level, that is the awareness. Recognition of Oilus.
Even though Etzem Hashem also is a presence, which also implies a environment besides the Etzemus, right?
No, so it is a presence. Well, this is a presence from his own perspective, that he is a presence, that he knows himself.
But you wouldn't.
This brings to light.
Yeah.
I said this, we'll clarify. This brings to light the Ayin that we are repetitively bringing up because of its enormous significance and importance, which again, in our day, is completely lost. There's absolute necessity and truth in a person knowing himself, knowing that he is a human being. And this does not constitute gaiva or chauvinism or anything like that. I mean, the world is so crazy that if you consider yourself superior to the animal, then you're being chauvinistic. I'm not joking. This is the fact. This is absolute ludicrous. It's important to understand that a person must identify himself as a human being because that is what the Rebbe Shem made him. Rebbe Shem is with him in that sense. And is constantly telling him, you know who you are, you know who you are, you know what I made here. That's what he has to recognize. This is knowing himself. Because he knows himself, so when somebody calls him by name, he responds. Because I know you're talking to me. If I'm a non-entity, then why you call me by name? Why don't you give me a shav?
profound on a psychological level.
Well, yeah, why? Yeah, well, that's it's. I mean, I think that they're waking up slowly. As I read Beis with the psychologists, ridiculous. They're trying to cure a human depression by making him an animal. Of course, an animal's not going to be depressed. But an animal's not going to be human either. Couldn't be greater depression than for a human being considering himself an animal. So Aliyah's Horotzin, this what you ask Etzem Hashem, this is like Etzem Hashem in the human being. Etzem Hashem, he has an Etzem Hashem. That's to him. But he is a presence. And so similarly, Lemailo, there's in from Aliyah's Horotzin al Ho'elamis. No, Aliyah's Horotzin al Ho'elamis, this is already al Ho'elamis. But Etzem Yin, the Ayin Sof, the Ayin Sof shel Knei Atzimtum, Ayin Sof, which is representative of the Etzem itself, because the Etzem wanted to be a presence. This is the Etzem of the, this is the Oyer in general. Within that there is these two madrigas, Etzem Oyer and Ispashtos Oyer.
I thought we said that even the Etzem Hashem, a person doesn't need a shame just for himself. He only has a shame because he's in a world. He's in an environment. He has a shlichus to, whatever it is. He has a significance in a larger context. That's why he needs a shame.
Right.
So even here, Etzem Hashem, then when the Eibishter, so to speak, knows himself, there's sort of an underlying implication that there is a context already.
So this is the difference between the name as it's by a person and the name as we in Etzem Hashem L'mayla. Name by a person is imperative because that's like we said, the sun is light. It cannot be but light. It cannot shed the light. In Etzem Hashem is a necessity. It's part of the definition of a human being. This is why he's here, to be part of the world. L'mayla, this Shem is a volitional presence. It is not the definition of Atzmus. Like we said way back when, Leizehu Iker Holokus the oil, this is the ability to create. That's not what
right, but I'm saying the oil starts already by Etzem Hashem, almost. I mean, in other words, it's volitional that he should know himself, which already implies that there's going to be a presence other.
No. Just like Etzem, Atzmus. And so Atzmus is a presence that precedes non-presence. Therefore, it doesn't need a definition from a non-presence, an acknowledgement from a non-presence perspective. You know what I'm saying? You follow these words? If we say that it is from an oilmus perspective, he's recognized from a non-presence perspective. That there's a context, that he fills a void.
Okay, it's just the Ratzah. It's just whatever he wants to know himself.
That's right.
And
that's why. Okay, we have pointed this out, and I want to point it out again. This is the like I said, that is Chosev Heir and so forth. We have to understand that no matter how far the oil extends, no matter how far the union of creation, where it becomes, so to speak, an entity completely unto itself, disconnected to anything. That too comes from Atzmus. Not only comes from Atzmus, but is there because Atzmus gives it a presence. Just like in a home. You can decorate your walls, and it represents your seichel and midas and talent and beauty and all that. Bottom line, it represents your presence. And if you should move out, this whole thing collapses. It's nothing.
What's that illustrating?
Sorry?
What's the point that?
That it always go. Everything has to ultimately go back to the very original source. And this is what gives it presence. So the original, the Ayin that he wanted to be in Oyer, just for itself. This is the source of everything. This is what substantiates everything. This is what gives everything a sense of reality. It is there because Atmos is there. Period. And it's so for distant. That ultimately is its reality. This is why it's real.
Was it said that he wants to be present in Or? That I was said.
That's right. That's what he said. He wanted to represent himself in Or.
And that's like Shem.
This is like Shem, Etzem Hashem. This is the Etzem of the
The
Shem.
Etzem Hashem is here like the Etzem Ratzon to be in Or.
No, to be in Oyer, yes, not to be in the world. That's secondary.
To be in Or, and here meaning to have some kind of representation.
To be a presence.
Be a presence. I guess.
Representation means that you're representing yourself to something else. A presence. Atzma doesn't have a presence.
That's what doesn't have a okay, so I guess that's where he is unto himself without presence, and then he thinks then he has Ratzon to be a presence. I'm not catching what, because for us, and I think that was original in your question, presence and name implies going out, a representation, like I keep saying.
No, because by Yas, present and representation are synonymous.
Right, that's where I'm.
Because we would not have a presence if not for the fact that we'd be representing in the world. Because that's the reality in which we find ourselves. Atzmus does not have that. Atzmus, the reality of Atzmus does not begin from non-presence. That's my
It begins from presence.
From presence, from himself.
So what's the chiddush here that he wanted he wanted to show himself in light again?
He wanted to represent himself in light. It's like he wanted to know himself.
Before he didn't know himself, he wants to know
That's
himself.
right. Before he did not know himself. No means identify. What am I? Who am I?
Yeah, I think right. What am I?
This is the similar thing that I'm saying just now before. That the name to a person is very important to himself. I am a real person. Why am I a real person? Because I was created by a real being.
That's fine, but how would the real being have to go into the stage of knowing himself? The real being knows himself. He is himself.
Knowing is a much lower level than being.
And I guess the problem here for me is that knowing starts to do with the contrast, subject.
By the
object.
human being, that's where his presence begins.
Like we said by Chokhmah.
Right. But L'mayla, it's using me'atzmusay, said emes. That is there, and the oil represents this emes.
So in a very simple sense, Hashem wanted to know himself, and then he wanted others should know him.
That's his passion of that.
Yeah, that's the next, the Eliezer Ratzon.
That's Eliezer Ratzon, right. Eliezer Ratzon.
There was no Ratzon to know himself also? Before the...
That is the initial Ratzon Aloyer.
There's two Ratzonos we're talking about? One is to know himself and one is to be...
To be in the world, yeah.
But we said that Or synonymous with having two parts, Etzema Or and Hispashtus Or.
Yeah.
This is only after these. In other words, by the Eibishter, he could just have Etzema Or. That could be it, right? It's all he volitionally created that there should also be separately Hispashtus Or.
Well, yes, but oil by definition has etzem oil and hispashtus oil. This is what oil is. Oil means a presence. The hitzonis of presence is hispashtus oil.
The idea that he wants to know himself already means that there's an outside. That's
No, that is a presence.
There's a presence.
He knows himself from inside.
So why does that imply Hispashtus Or? Why does that imply Hispashtus Or? If he knows himself.
Because the hitzonis of presence is hispashtus.
Didn't have to go into that though.
You don't have to. That's true. Aliyah Zarotzen, al oilamis, that is another rotzen. But inherent in that oil, this Aliyah Zarotzen came as a result of that there is the oil. Because inherent in oil is his pashtus.
If it was inherent, why would they require Aliyah Zarotzen?
The Aliyah Zarotzen is the calling forth, is the identifying this inherent element. You said that in the name there is the Etzem Hashem and there's a Kriyas Hashem.
Yeah.
The ability to call him by name is a separate creation.
No. But the actual calling.
But the actual calling is a separate step. But in name there is this in him, Hashem, and there is that he can be called by name.
Okay, that's what makes it the makor for everything.
That's right. The hispashtus oil is inherent in the air. But then you calling him, that's already identifying the hispashtus oil.
Once there's a presence, there could be then hispashtus.
Hispashtus.
That's what you mean by that. This was the beginning of everything.
That's right.
Being a presence.
This is the beginning of everything. And the important thing is that this beginning cannot be divorced from whatever happens afterwards. That is what gives substance throughout all existence.
And this beginning was presence.
Beginning with presence.
And
Presence and Beis.
how do we say that it can't be divorced? What's the...
Because the minute it's divorced,
then
there is nothing there. Like we did.
it's...
Going back to our
that would
simple...
mean non-presence precedes presence.
That's right. That's like we said in our simple station, slowly we're getting the sense. Should the world be destroyed without any consequences within the worldly experience?
Yeah.
Has anything happened?
So on the one hand you say nothing happened.
From a worldly perspective, nothing happened. If it were just world. But world is not just world.
It's like you're destroying the Eibishter.
That's right, you're destroying the Eibishter's presence. It's unfathomable.
Why is it like destroying his presence? It's like destroying a representation of him. And
That's right. Here's a presentation in the world.
And we had
it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Even though he's not limited to world, he's not limited to being the creator of the world. So it's very.
No. They are talking about affecting the Meibashter. I'm talking about what you're eliminating from the world. Not Meibashter. You're not affecting anyway. That's not the point. But to like we said in the case of the host, you're the host. You served you the lunch, and then he leaves. That's like destroying the whole thing. The host is not affected, but you left the whole thing in a total vacancy, total vacuum. You with us, Akiva? Wonderful.
But what's to say that he couldn't do that? He could. I mean,
What?
what's to say that he couldn't do that? Walk away.
Of course he could do that.
Yeah.
This is why we constantly, every Rosh Hashanah, we say, please, we'll be good, we will good.
If it's going to come, it's going to come from him. It's not going to come from the world, though. In other words, it's not something that we can affect.
Well, we can affect because he's not bound by it, and therefore, if the world is not something which is representing of him, he says, who wants it? Who needs it? Originally, it was mitzat chofetz chesed milmayla, but afterwards it depends on our status and our avodah. That's what the whole thing is. Avodah, to keep him with us. Don't go away. Wait a second. I'm eating your lunch. Don't run away.
Well, I'm having trouble with this concept of knowledge of self. I know you mentioned it earlier. It didn't sink in.
All right.
It's a desire for presence, to know knowledge of self. Is that?
It is, well, where the desire, we cannot understand it from a non-presence perspective. Forget it. If you want to understand from that, and it doesn't exist. It originated in Etzem. Why did he want it? Because it's a truth. There's a truth to it.
Before that, Hashem, so to speak, didn't know himself?
Right.
Oh.
Didn't know himself in terms of a presence. Hashem never lacked anything. In terms of a identifiable and knowable presence, no. You could say that this is similar to Nefesh Odom, and then Nefesh Odom has Chochmah. Why isn't Chochmah if he has himself? He doesn't. But this is self-appreciation. Is through Chochmah. Right. So let me just read something inside. So we have a contextual relationship over here. Etzem. We connect to the Etzem. Mm-hmm. Okay, third line from the bottom, from the top rather, the end of the line. V'chein gam. So this is Aliyah Zorotze in the Shem. This is called the Ispashtus. So we are pointing out that there is this Hispashtus Ho'er in the Oyer. Even the Oyer Lifnei HaTzimtzum, as we pointed out. And that is the Aliyah Zorotzin Aloylamus, which is Mamash HaChitzeni Zeketing. V'chein, and even further, Gam Mashel Amayla Mebchinas Aliyah Zorotzin. Even that which is above of the aspect of Aliyah Zorotzin. Aliyah Zorotzin means there is already a Rotzin to create worlds. That which is beyond, above that, Aliyah Zorotzin. There is still only the Etzem. Hare Yodua, but even there, Hare Yodua, it is known, Shezehu Gam Kein Bibchinas Hiserus Kloli Al Kol Ponim. That prior to Aliyah Zorotzin, there is the Bechina or Hiserus Kloli. All right, so the Hiserus Kloli, in Mitzvah Hashem, we will try to dive into tonight. Everybody's invited, approximately at 8:30 at 679 Crown Street. Have a good day. Koltuk. Sehr gesund.
No, 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 no,